And the path the Bills could go with backup quarterback right now, Luka, is one, they could just ride it out with Mitch Trubisky and figure that maybe he's like 80% week one, 90%, but on the off chance they need him to play, he can just get him out of a game. That's fine. But the other thing they could do is they could IR him short term. Now, I want to get this out of the way real quick. There's two ways to get a player to IR without having to end their season right now. You're allowed to put two players on IR before you cut down to 53 with the idea that they are going to return. Anybody else you put on IR, their season is done before the 53-man cut. This is a new rule this year. I would expect this happens with Matt Milano. Prior to Tuesday at 4 p.m., the Bills are going to put Matt Milano on IR with the ability to return later in this year. That's one of the Bills' spots. The Bills could do the same thing with Mitch Trubisky, and there goes the second spot. Hypothetically speaking, if the Bills decided they also wanted to put Quentin Morris on IR, they actually have to carry him to the initial 53-man roster, and then they can put him on IR. And that's where you will see a scenario where the Bills will cut a player that's making very little guaranteed money, like Reed Ferguson, with the old stay in the parking lot Reed. And you cut him temporarily just to get Quentin Morris to your roster, and then you put Quentin Morris on IR, and then you re-sign Reed Ferguson. So just that's a little bit of housekeeping. Let's talk about backup quarterback. If the Bills decide, because it's not a conversation if Mitch Trubisky can start the season. He's the backup quarterback. We're good to go. Good enough, I guess. If Mitch Trubisky has to go on short-term IR, the Bills have already cut Anthony Brown. He was the guy they picked up last week. Ben DiNucci did not play well. I'm not even going to pull his stats. He did not play well in the preseason game. That's to be expected. As Luka said, he's a guy that UFL teams have given up on. I think that the Bills are going to be in a situation where, one, they're scouring the waiver wire. A very popular name out there is Kyle Allen. He knows the system. PJ Walker's a name I brought up last week because he has experience with Joe Brady. You could look at somebody that has experience starting like a Zach Wilson or a Mike White who are projected to be released this week. Either way, there's no perfect answer, because even if you go with a Zach Wilson or a Mike White, they're going to have so little experience in the system by the time week one gets here. There's no perfect answer. Luka, I threw a wild scenario out on Twitter earlier, and I want to run it by you. Let's say Trubisky goes on short-term IR, and let's say that the Bills look around the landscape and they're like, the best we can do is Ben DiNucci, PJ Walker. I think Kyle Allen's probably a little too good for this idea. The best we can do is somebody like that. I think the Bills in that scenario should only carry one quarterback on their active roster. Let me explain. The Bills under Sean McDermott have always carried three quarterbacks on their roster in totality, two on the active roster and then one on the practice squad. In this scenario, I would advocate that the Bills carry one quarterback on their active roster and two on the practice squad. And then for the first 4 or 5 games until Trubisky is ready to go, that quarterback or the other quarterback gets called up for the game. So if Josh Allen tweaks his knee in warm-up, you still have a Ben DiNucci or a PJ Walker or whoever to come in and play for you. And the idea is that whether it's Ben DiNucci, PJ Walker, whoever, no team is going to want to add them to their active roster. And if a team like Miami, who plays the Bills week 2, decides they want to be jerks, I used another word offline, and sign the Bills backup quarterback and Ben DiNucci, that's why you have the second one there. And he comes up and he's the backup for that game. To me, Luka, the risk is minimal because I don't think there's a world where somebody's going to steal both of your backup quarterbacks who are not really rosterable to begin with. And the gain is you get an extra roster spot for one of the players we're going to talk about tonight.
It's an intriguing strategy. And I mean that because it's kind of, I don't know if this has ever been done before.
One time, real quick, Dallas did it with Dak Prescott and had Cooper Rush on their practice squad. If you want to believe in curses, Dak Prescott left that game at halftime. The serious injury. Cooper Rush.
Is that when he destroyed his bottom of it? Oh, okay.
Wow. Yeah, and then Cooper Rush had to be the quarterback for a while.
Yeah.
So if you think you're playing with fire, the one example of this is maybe they were.
Okay. So it's happened once before, so there is precedent, but overall, exposing quarterbacks on your roster in general to the rest of the league is something that kind of doesn't sit exactly well with me. Your point is very valid. Realistically, are PJ Walker and Ben DiNucci desirable assets at all? No. I think anyone out there, Miami, because of the week 2, Thursday night game or whatever, if the Patriots just want to be those people, do, do they want to steal them? They have the ability to, and that would just be a kind of a dick move. But overall, they would have to then do something, roster movement of their own to facilitate that. And of course, I mean, they probably like their 53-man roster themselves better than just trolling the Bills to the point of signing Ben DiNucci and or PJ Walker in this example. So it's a valid one, because if you're really trying to say, how do we get to 10 offensive linemen, or, whatever the number is that you feel like it's teetering on for a position group, that could be the way to get around it, right? That realistically is a path for a way to do it. You are tempting fate a little bit. It feels like you're playing with energies and things out there by only having one quarterback active on your roster. That feels a little bit wrong. And knock on wood, nothing happens or nothing takes place. But it's just it's a move that makes sense. I can see how that makes sense, in the sense of, hey, we have a tight end situation here where we want to go as deep as, Zach Davidson, and we want to also make sure we go, as I said before, 10 offensive line deep, because let's say we just want to really ensure that Garage is still on this team. Whatever it is, if that's how you then buy that slot to do this, it makes a lot of sense, because you still have that ability come game day to elevate, as you said. That'll be one of your elevations, and hopefully you just don't run into a serious issue where that one elevation from your practice squad for game day becomes one that you wish you had for something else. That would take a serious run of injuries and or whatever else it could be to cause that kind of deal. So, a lot of times you're seeing, these people elevated and or, these individuals being inactive on game day. It's like one or two might be impactful, but the rest are kind of pretty streamlined. If you start raising serious confusion on game day, for then all of a sudden you have to elevate a quarterback every game, you're probably running into greater issues elsewhere anyways. Uh-oh. Did I lose Josh? Did I lose you, Josh?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Let me close out of this site and we'll just make a note of this real quick. Okay, we're ready to go. I opened a web page that just totally crashed everything. I was trying to find something on practice squad payments, or how much people make on practice squads, because I was going to make a point. Okay.
I made a note. Yeah.
Okay. One other thing to keep in mind. So I think the best case scenario for the Bills would be, let's say Kyle Allen gets released from the Steelers, and the Bills go out there and they're like, hey, Trubisky's going to be back in a month. Kyle Allen and Matt Barkley, we're going to sign you to our practice squad. These are two guys that have familiarity in the Bills system. We know Josh Allen gets along with them. And maybe Kyle Allen's a fringe top 64 quarterback and somebody would want to add them to their roster. I doubt it. Nobody did that in the offseason. The Steelers did as a third stringer, but it was clear he was never, ever going to be top 2. I don't think it's a given that even if a team like the Patriots comes in and says, hey, we're going to sign you to our active roster because we're going to stick it to the Bills, Kyle Allen, if he knows that he's going to be elevated for the Bills for the first 3 weeks of the season, he's going to make a bigger salary having been elevated. He's going to make a game day salary. Whereas when he goes to the Patriots in this example, Brissett and May outrank him anyway. So he'll be on the roster. He'll make the same salary he'd make with the Bills, but he's 2 injuries away from playing for the Patriots. He's 1 injury away for playing for the Bills. And, Kyle Allen's a guy that's just trying to stay in the league at this point in time. And I don't think you want to do the Bills dirty when they're a team that you have a good relationship with. This is all examples. I don't know that I expect the Bills to do this, but I did want to bring up this scenario as something the Bills could consider